Welcome to the Scorpio Bookshelf. I'm Joaquin.
And I'm Morgan, and this is a podcast about books, besties, and escaping reality.
This is a fun one. I like this one this week.
Yeah, this is a good topic. I think this is going to be a fun one to listen to, and a fun one for people to contribute their thoughts on.
Facts. It's a little throwback Friday action, or flashback Friday action here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about nostalgic books.
Yeah, what kind of got us into reading, what kind of shaped us as people now, and what we remember, as well as also some of the struggles that we faced when we were younger or as a full-fledged adult now with reading. Because this topic was actually kind of suggested by my fiance, because she finds herself sort of in a weird space where she's like, I don't actually know if I'm cut out to be a reader, or if I just haven't had the chance to find my genre, the type of book I like, or have had a good enough guide into suggesting books.
100%. I think it can make and break your experience as a reader when you start reading, when you get into reading at the beginning, what you choose. Because if you choose a bunch of stuff that probably should have been DNFs, best of luck.
And no one knew what a DNF was back when we were kids, but it was very much just like you either get through the book or you just like wouldn't start it sort of from the beginning.
And then you just stop reading.
Yeah, because you have a really bad taste in your mouth about a specific set of books.
So let's start with what kind of got us through reading as a kid. Obviously, everybody has that moment where it's like, I don't want to read, because you're trying to learn to read and you're frustrated and you hate it. I turned into a much, huge reader as a kid. As soon as I could read, once I got past the, I don't want to, I got very much back into books. I know you had a different experience than I did.
Huge. I grew up playing for 5 different sports a year, so it didn't feel like I had time to read because school in general was first. And then I remember coming home, being forced to at least try to do my homework before my dad got home, before I had to get ready and go to sports for the rest of the night. From 4:30 to about 9:30, I was out. And that was 4 or 5 times a week. So every school day. And it was man. So, and the time after sports, it was do you want to try to do your homework? No. So I was doing bad in school, for one. And two, why would I read for fun when I had to read for homework? So reading really was opposite end of who I ever thought I wanted to be. And plus the pressures of my sister, because my parents were always on me. The fact that my sister was full-fledged reading 7, 8-year-old novels at 3 or 4 years old. It was a lot to live up to. And I was no, I'm not her. She's not me. I'm my own person, whatever. So reading was a sore spot for me.
I was quite literally completely the opposite. I was the kid, my sport as a kid was jiu-jitsu. I have a black belt. And my mom taught kickboxing at the same place that I did jiu-jitsu. So, I would do my class, and then my mom would teach kickboxing. And while she taught kickboxing, I would sit and read a book.
Oh, that sounds so peaceful. Besides, the grunting and the pad, the mat hitting and everything.
Smacking
peaceful.
Noises.
Yeah.
But no, I was this was also phone era. So from that 9 to 14, I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't if I was gonna sit and do something, it was homework or read for fun, and I would rather read for fun than do homework.
Okay, so everyone is in agreement. Homework sucks, period.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, even in the before the phone era, I would just be outside, feet in the dirt, just causing mayhem.
Yeah.
But I think now that I'm looking back at it, I did enjoy books, but I did not want to be the one to physically read them. Which ties into maybe why I love audiobooks so much now. True. I loved library reading time. I loved being able to lean up against a bookshelf, kind of off in the corner, trying to not be seen by teachers, so I could just sleep, because the story would kind of put me to sleep because I felt comfortable and relaxed. But I loved story time, and to the point where I, for some reason, found the book that my librarian was reading to us at home in our shelves. And so I was reading it twice on library days. So she would read it, and I would go from that beginning point and finish where I remember her finishing in that during the time. And so I was reading the book twice, and I actually liked it. But the only reason I was doing that is because I was having trouble sleeping, which is one of the reading struggles that I had as a kid. Is I had a lot of eye fatigue. I had apparently a lot of focusing issues, so I needed glasses, so it would make me very tired. So instead of me going, my eyes are tired, or my eyes aren't as strong, which makes me tired, which makes me put me to sleep, I thought books put me to sleep.
Fair.
So again, pushing books away. And I was like, no, books made me sleepy. I don't like this. I'm not going to read.
To be fair, books still make you sleepy. The man who listens to audiobooks 3 times because he falls asleep.
Excuse me? No, me literally last night trying to read Wild and Wrangled, and I read a short chapter, and I was out. I was so dead. So yes, it does. But if I'm really into a book, I'll stay awake. It's fine.
100%. So I was the kid that, I'm going to say some of these names, and people who have been readers for a long time are going to be like, hell yeah, that's what I read as a kid. Other people are going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Facts. It could be like a Canadian series too. You never know.
Also, yeah, I have no idea how niche these are, but they were popular within my age range. So I'm 27. So if you're like a late 90s kid, potentially you'll relate to these. Also, I still see these on fucking Value Village shelves.
Me too.
I have started picking them back up for my own kids now that I have them. So in like middle grade age, so I would say like 7 to 10 years old ish, I was a fantasy girl. You could not get me to read something that didn't have dragons or witches or magic, or I was in it for the fantasy. I was a huge fan of Cornelia Funk. You might not recognize that name, but she wrote Dragon Rider, The Thief Lord, and the Inkheart series. The Inkheart series is probably the one that most people will recognize, but I was obsessed. And I just bought Dragon Rider for my son. And I'm very excited about it. I was also hugely into Septimus Heap by Angie Sage. Also just magic, fantasy, middle grade books. Percy Jackson, like every other early 2000s reader, loved them. Still love them. Would probably reread them today, and they would hold up.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. Those were not as popular, and that might actually be a more niche thing than the other 3. I don't know how popular those were, but I loved them.
If I could remember correctly, see how actually needs to start. Is this the one with the polar bear?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Super niche, you're right. I just remember it because I am thinking very Canadian, like, whatever.
I was going to say, I think it's a Canadian thing, potentially.
Yeah.
It's the one that has the little girl riding the polar bear on the front.
Yep.
I loved them. It was the His Dark Materials series. That's what the series was called.
I do remember that.
So I think this was probably the age range where you were not reading for fun.
No, it was when I was being read to, but like I was reading because we were forced to read in school. So by reading, like, I mean, yes. So like, I have a list of things as well, but mine are not. They're novels, but they're not novels. They're like more. They're like
they were sanctioned reads.
Yeah, they're like in between a comic book because sometimes I didn't like comic books. We didn't have too many of them either at my library, and if we did, they would be checked out a lot. But they weren't full-fledged chapter book novels or whatever. So, this is the age range of just like straight kid and preteens as well. So I started off with like the Magic Tree Houses because there were a ton of them. Mm-hmm. I actually recently saw them in Indigo again, and they redid the covers. Yep. So I'm like, No, I don't. I like my old Jack for
Yeah.
whatever. The Animorph series.
Oh my god, yes.
I was obsessed with those just to watch or just to see the person grow on the pages into the animal and like change them. So I love that. Diary of a Wimpy Kid feels really new, but now that I'm thinking about it,
It's not.
Yep, no, we're just old.
Yep.
Cool. Geronimo Stilton, I've mentioned a ton on here before. Easy. See, it's like it's the books that have the words that are kind of funky that make you kind of like. It felt more graphic novel-y.
It's the ones that are destined to be engaging for kids versus like Golden Compass and Septimus Heap, for example, would be very middle grade. These would be more like early reader.
Yes, yeah. So that was all me, and then after I stopped these, and it was over. Brings me into Captain Underpants again. Put your hand on the page and flip the corner, and that Matrica is just going. Spider Witch.
Oh, Spiderwick Chronicles were so good.
Spiderwick. Yes. Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh, you're bringing me back. I went older than that and didn't think about this age range.
And then Goosebumps.
I loved Goosebumps.
Yeah,
I'm a Stephen King girl. That's not surprising.
Yeah, that's the direct correlation between child and adult.
Yeah.
Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, similar styles, mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And then since I was really into sports, I was subscribed to the Sports Illustrated magazines, and that was my only sort of subscription magazine. Man, did I love those.
Oh, yeah.
So good. But that was my core childhood, if I'm thinking about it, because like Scholastic book fairs and everything, you would go exactly to all these different things. And that's me taking out Guinness Book of World Records or Ripley's Believe It or Not. But those are the things that kind of were my whole childhood.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and preface. I was ahead for reading always, so I read higher than grade level most of the time. But if I'm thinking way back, I freaking loved, I think they were called Amelia Bedelia. They were like a girly...
Like, kind of like a Judy B. Jones, like the rhymey...
Yeah.
Babysitter's Club, I remember those.
Yeah.
Oh, Babysitter's Club.
That's what they were called. Amelia Bedelia, and they were initially part of like the I Can Read leveled reader stuff, and then they were like a little bit bigger, little small chapter books. So those were probably like grade 1, grade 2. Like I loved those.
Yeah.
And then I got into like I would say probably grade 4, maybe. I got super into like the actual fantasy type middle grade chapter books. And then, obviously, as I got older, Harry Potter, hugely, massively popular with me and every other person our age. I read Twilight disgustingly young, like grade 6. Like I had no business.
Yikes!
Reading Twilight that young, but me and like my actual real life best friend Holly, who was the same age as me, I distinctively remember both of us just with those fucking bricks of a book in like 6th grade. Ridiculous. I loved and still love to this day the Aragon series. That was also that age group, and then they ruined it with a bad movie. It's true. Right. Then this is going to be a niche one, I think. The Darkest Powers trilogy by Kelly Armstrong. That might be a Canadian thing because she is Canadian.
Okay. But I wouldn't know it, I think, based on the fact that, again, I was not reading during this time, but they look kind of familiar.
So, for those listening, I'm holding them up to show Joaquin, because yes, I still own them. I love them. When I first owned them, I thrifted these again recently. When I first owned them, it was one giant book with all 3 books in it.
Oh.
And I read that shit cover to cover in a weekend. Because I was so obsessed.
Oh, God!
I literally, I'm not kidding you, like, cover to cover in a weekend. We had family friends over, and I sat at our dining room table because I had 25 pages left, and my parents were like, no, you have to come downstairs, we have people over. I was like, fine, fuck you, I'm finishing this book. So I sat at our dining room table with the book in front of me while we had people over in our living room because they made me come downstairs.
Fine, fuck you, I'm finishing. This is so Morgan coded. Oh my god.
It's hilarious because it's like you asked my parents what my acting out was, and it was shit like that.
Bitch never puts down a book. I'm gonna take one and just hit her with it. Oh god.
No, literally. And then, to be fair, at this point, this is probably like grade 7, 8, 9-ish. This is when I discovered fanfic.
Oh, yikes.
So there was a period of time where it looked like I didn't read because I didn't read physical books, but I read like hours of fanfic every night.
Some of you, like, people who read the fan... Like, I see people on TikTok talking about reading fanfic and stuff. Y'all are, like... Some people are complaining over, like, 1,000-page, like, book now, and they're like, really? Because I used to read, like 2,500-page fanfics, and okay. I would just, like... Oh my.
I don't know how I did it. There's one specific... I'm going to get so roasted for this. One specific One Direction fanfiction that I read.
No!
That I loved so much. That shit was 55 chapters long of just straight HTML scrolling. Because, like, they weren't, like, it wasn't ebook format. It was literally some other teenager writing it on the internet.
That's so crazy, being the person, one, writing it, two, having a big-ass following where everyone is, like, waiting for updates or add-ons or whatever.
Because they were released chapter by chapter. Fanfic was released chapter by chapter at that point. And I was fucking feral waiting for those chapters.
I can just imagine young you running home, opening the door, whipping your backpack off, and running to the family computer. Like, oh my.
No, thankfully, I had my own laptop at this point. We weren't sharing internet searches.
Okay, holy shit.
Oh, God. Yeah,
what did Harry do today?
So I read, the 3 genres of fanfic that I read were Harry Potter, obviously.
Okay.
Twilight.
Yeah, that's...
And One Direction.
That was... No.
There was also a point where I read a little bit of supernatural fanfiction too, but...
Holy... I've never gotten into anything. I didn't even know that world existed.
Oh, I was in it. I was, like, Tumblr fanfiction.
Holy... I mean, I was on Tumblr, but I wasn't on that stuff.
That age group, I really, like... it looked like I wasn't reading, but Homegirl was devouring shit.
You're probably reading more during that time than, like...
Probably than I do now.
Probably. Like, holy... Just, like, blanket on in the middle of, like, oh, God, in the middle of the night. Fuck.
You want an even sadder visual?
Oh, 100%.
My bedroom at my parents' house is hardwood floor, so I had one of those little, like, rolly trays with my laptop on it, so I would literally just prop myself up. And it would sit on the rolly tray in front of me. Oh
my god. That's the equivalent of, like, the kid alarm now. It's just like...
No, literally.
Scroll.
I just made Joaquin's whole day with that visual.
It also reminds me of, like, a hospital, though. Like,
no, literally, that's
like,
what
even
it is.
if I'm in a hospital, I'm pulling out my fanfic. Oh my god. Okay, well, this honestly is, like, a good point for me to bring up in terms of, like, what I'm figuring out with me as a kid and all this is that the environment at which you are trying to read and or kind of raised in helps with your reading journey.
100%. I will also preface the fact that I grew up with parents that were readers.
Right. So mine was
So
50%.
yeah, both of my parents are readers, but my dad is like, my dad used to be a bring 6 books on vacation because he'll read a book a day kind of reader.
Wow.
So I grew up with that like devourable mindset, which is not.
No, mine was only my dad, and I only knew he read when I was at practice.
Okay.
He would be reading. I know he'd be reading in the car when I was at practice, but I didn't really see him read other than that. I think he was reading in bed before he fell asleep. But yeah. I never saw him just reading on the couch. He'd always be watching TV, and he still does that now. But my mom wasn't really a reader, but my mom understood the importance of reading because it was in direct correlation with being able to write well as well. And I was always shit on as a kid for my shitty writing. And my parents would be like, see, because you don't read. So
I think I credit a lot of my writing ability to the fact that I was a reader as a kid.
Exactly.
It is one of the highest complimented things that I get complimented for, specifically at work, is my writing ability. And like people will ask me to quote unquote wordsmith their emails all the time. Exactly. And I think that is mostly because of the volume of written content that I consumed.
Which makes sense. Years. Right. Which makes sense. Because, like, mine would be, like, the report or the question in the test would be, like, why did you like the main character? Like, I like the main character because he was cool. And that would be, like, my answer. And I'd always fail. Because I couldn't. It's like, I knew I liked him, but I couldn't express it.
You weren't looking for more. Yeah.
Never looking for more. And I was a bare minimum kid. Always in school, so.
I was a massive overachiever, and I still am. So I think also, like, you know this of me, I'm an incredibly strong perfectionist.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
And, like, I'm quite type A in some ways and not in others, but I think also part of that was, like, oh, I'm doing well in school, so that should mean I'm expected to be doing all this stuff outside of school. I'm expected to be reading. I'm expected to be doing this. I'm expected to be doing that. And honestly, like, I was a very average kid in school in everything but English.
Okay.
Like, English was my strong suit most of the time, and not even just, like, English, but, like, book reports and essays, and, like, that's what I'm good at. Still to this day, that's what I'm good at. And it's just interesting to me that, like, that was actually kind of shit on when I was in school. Like, you're good at the subject that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that also devalues reading, because a lot of times you hear parents be like, oh, well, they're just good at English. Oh, well, they're just good at reading. Oh, well, they're just good at whatever. They're not good at math. They're not good at science. So we're, like, inherently brought up to believe that if that's what you're good at, it's lesser than the other. So why would that drive kids to read? Like,
because I remember the argument always being great. You're the best at the language you speak. You should be good at it.
Exactly. Okay, to be fair, French is my second language. I also did well in all of that stuff in French. Sure. But I think that's just inherent to the fact that I enjoy that stuff as well. But basically, I got through that, like, fanfic phase probably by, like, 15, 16, maybe?
Sure.
So, like, grade 10, 11?
Yep.
And then I took the Stephen King nosedive. And it never stopped.
Yeah. Skeleton it!
So, my first Stephen King book that I ever read was The Shining.
Crazy.
Yeah, loved it. And then the second Stephen King book I ever read was Thinner, which I just recommended to Joaquin and he just picked up. And then I just kind of tumbled through it. Pet Sematary, Thinner, The Shining, It. Like, it just spiraled. All of those, Misery, all of the old classics.
Right.
And then I went off to university. Obviously, university is incredibly reading heavy because I did do a criminology degree and then a psychology degree. That's all fucking books. So I did not read a lot for fun through those years of my life because I was reading essentially as my job in school at that point. So I was spending so much time reading that I was like, I can't read for fun right now. My eyes are going to fall out of my face.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
But I did read a lot of like true crime or like academic stuff at that point. So like I said, the most surprising book on my shelf might be Mask of Sanity by Harvey Cleckley. I did technically read that for fun, but it tied into my thesis, so like it was still
Sure.
for school. And then yeah, here we are.
What a vibe.
What a vibe. What a journey.
Yeah. I didn't ever think I'd end up being more of a reader, which brings us to the whole, are people not readers, or they just have it, or have they not found their genre? And for me, I don't want to say I just didn't find my genre, because I knew of fantasy. I liked magic, dragon, all that stuff, but in movie form. So when I first got recommended and thrown into my book talk journey of finding Fourth Wing as my first fantasy,
crazy,
it was easy to just be like, oh, hell yeah, dragons, love that. But then also War College, which gives me like the whole
big vibes, yeah.
Male reader also gives them that vibe. So it was easy. I think because it just became intentional, and the environment changed as I grew up.
Yep.
I had more time. It didn't feel as pressured. Things started to open up. And having a guide and Rex of somebody who I trusted helped a lot. So I don't believe that people are inherently just not readers. I think they just have not found or run into the book that sparks everything.
I'm like 50-50. I think it has a lot to do with what you choose to read, and it also has a lot to do with who you are as a person. So, like, if there are barriers to your ability to read, if you're somebody that lives with migraines, if you're somebody that's dyslexic, if you're somebody that struggles with eye fatigue, that immediately puts you back behind the 8 ball compared to the average reader. Right. So then on top of that, if you haven't found your niche and you struggle to just do the physical act of reading, why would you want to read? That's a really hard hurdle to overcome. So I think anyone can be a reader. I also think there's a struggle now with like book talk and book social media that people have a hard time classifying themselves as a reader if they're not hitting crazy goals. Like, I don't read 50 books a year, so I'm not a reader. Okay, if you read a book a month, you read more than like 90% of the population. You're a reader if you pick up a book for fun. That's my take on that. I think the whole like reading goals and all of that is incredibly toxic to like the average person's motivation to pick up a book and read, because it seems like such a high level of commitment when really it's not. If you read a chapter a night of a 30-chapter book for a month and you finish one book a month for a year, you're a reader.
Yeah.
If you finish 6 books a year, you're a reader. Like, I don't care how many books you read, how quickly you read them, what genre you read. If you are reading books as a choice in your lifestyle and it brings you joy, you're a reader. That's my take on that. So, like, I know your fiance in particular, like, doesn't see herself as a quote-unquote reader, but she reads more than the average person, and Homegirl has devoured some books lately.
Yeah, she crushed more than she ever thought she would this year, and now she's just obviously taking a break. But yeah, that's what I told her, and that's what I was saying is I was like, dude, you just crushed 3 books in the span of 2.5 weeks, which is huge for you. So,
which is huge for anyone.
I was like, what are you talking about? You read 3 books last year, and you read 3 books this month. Like, what are you doing? But we did have a conversation, and this is a little bit off topic, but like why I love Kindles and e-readers, because it helps give accessibility and
Yes.
aid to those with those reading struggles, aka like eye fatigue, so from the blue light and all that stuff.
Yep.
Also with dyslexia, with the fonts that you can download onto.
Yes. For anyone who doesn't know, Kindle comes preloaded with the accessibility font for people with dyslexia. It is fantastic. It didn't used to be, but now it's preloaded as a font choice on the Kindle.
Yeah. I hear people being like, yeah, that shit just slaps for me. I'm like, fucking great. Like,
yeah.
Incredible. So it's a tough place to kind of find.
Yeah, like I think my husband, for example, is not a reader at all, but he is a gigantic Lord of the Rings fan and could listen to those audiobooks, the ones that Andy Serkis narrates, on loop for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So I think if he gave a chance to other high fantasy audiobooks, that he would actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, like all those like, well, the popular ones that everyone's like gushing about, like
I 100% think if he took the time to audio Brandon Sanderson, he would love it. Like
Sanderson,
without a
for
doubt.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
yeah.
the fact that he loves Tolkien, which is one of the most, and this is not hate on Tolkien, one of the most complicated, convoluted, difficultly worded, world-built fucking stories ever.
Yeah.
I'm certain that if he gave Brandon Sanderson a chance, he would love it.
He would crush like Oathbringer in like a day.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's just crazy though, because it's like people get into this mindset of like, I don't like reading because they didn't stumble into a lucky find on their first couple of books, and they're like, I just don't like reading, like it's just not for me, it's boring, it's whatever. I'm sure there are lots of people that don't want to use their free time to sit and read, but I think if a lot more people listened to an audiobook on their commute, listened to an audiobook while they walked their dog, did whatever, they would find that they actually love a lot of these stories. And it's not about the pressure of actually sitting down, opening a physical book, and reading a physical book every day.
Right.
It's not about that.
No. Wow. Yeah, I can just imagine him just opening and just like finishing and be like, oh yeah, so I finished Sanderson, the entire universe.
I think he would love the whole Cosmere universe. I really do.
Yeah.
And I've said this to him before, too. I also told him he would probably love the graphic audio of Fourth Wing.
Probably. It's giving movie.
Fourth Wing is incredibly accessible. So that's like a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I don't think anyone is inherently not a reader. I just don't think that's true. Because if we compare it to like TV, sure, there are plenty of people who don't devour TV series, but you don't inherently dislike TV and movies because you don't devour them.
Right.
Like, I think it's apples to oranges in a sense, but at the end of the day, if you haven't found your niche with something, of course you'd think you don't enjoy it. You haven't found the aspect of it that you like. For example, you were a huge sports kid. I dropped out of fucking dance, soccer, every possible sport until I found jiu-jitsu. And then I did jiu-jitsu, and then I wrestled in high school. Like, apparently I only like contact sports, but...
to rub under the body!
I only like to fuck people up. That should be surprising to no one who knows me. Anyways, but I thought I wasn't a sports kid because I didn't like team sports. But that just wasn't true. I just hadn't found my niche of sports that I enjoyed. No, so I think it's the same goes for reading. It's like if you haven't found your niche, even people who devour graphic novels, still readers.
Oh,
You're
hell yeah.
Still consuming book content. Like, I think people are like, I don't read 1,000-page fantasy books, so I'm not a reader. Nah. Nay.
Why is that the baseline? Goddamn.
But it totally is. Like, when you scroll through Book Talk, for example... the recs that I see are constantly these, like, bricks of fantasy books. Or super spicy romance, which is fine. We all know I love a spicy romance. But I think it really cuts people off from what's actually out there. Like, Joaquin's whole self-discovery of his enjoyment of romance has been so much fun to watch, because it's been a whole realization of, like, there is a whole niche of romance that has just enough spice and enough plot behind it that you actually enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't... Yeah. I think it's just the spice that I don't like. Because I'm a rom-com movie guy.
Yeah.
If we're popping something on for dinner, I look for a rom-com. Because I like the... I don't want to say satisfaction, but I like the wrap up in a pretty bow completion of the story of them getting
happy
together.
Ever after.
Yeah, I am a romantic, heart, like through and through, in terms of just like dating and
life.
everything.
Yeah.
So I knew that deep down I wouldn't hate romance, but I just hated the spice of it. So I was like, I'm not going to touch it. But I was also trying to force myself into a fantasy keyhole that just was not it.
It didn't fit, no.
I do enjoy fantasy, but if I don't know,
I genuinely think that if you had continued to try and shove yourself into fantasy over the last, let's say, 3 months, like since the beginning of this year, you wouldn't have been reading.
Nope, probably not. Not
because
at all.
there's this like fantasy approach on social media, especially for guys. That's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. If you're not enjoying it, don't read it.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many books, too many amazing authors, too many great stories out there to waste your time on stuff that you're not having fun with.
Yeah.
And that's not to say books that make you sob, books that destroy you emotionally, whatever. That's still a version of fun.
For some, yes.
For me. But I think it 100% is just about accessibility, pressure, and finding your niche.
Yeah.
Because I think anybody can enjoy the consumption of a story.
Yeah. I think for me also, it's just, I feel so out of place in the romance section because I'm a straight male.
It makes me so mad. It's like, there's no... I mean, in the same breath, there's judgment for females who read who read sci-fi.
Sure.
But the judgment is much harsher on men in romance than vice versa, in my opinion. And it's so weird because it's like, why we're all bowing down to these book boyfriends, and it's like, don't you want more actual men to read these books and be like, wow, I could be a better partner?
Yeah.
Like what? Like what?
And it's like, yeah, so it's like you don't see yourself as wanting to be the guy that figures out why she falls in love with him? You don't want to know all the trade secrets that are right
literally
in front of your
on paper? Yeah. Read one Hannah Bonham Young man and you will figure out what women want in life.
It's literally not hard. But like now I'm here giving book recs to you too, being like, hey, I found this one. I think it's going to be a cute story. So let's put it on our TBR list. Like what?
No, I love that. So I think the best part of your induction into romance in the last little bit has been like, you find something, you read it, tell me if it's good or not. You find something else, I read it at the same time, then tell you if it's good or not, then we'll swap.
That's literally what we're planning to do right now. So yeah, it's come with also the fact that I'm growing into the loosening up my expectations and being more open-minded with specific books. Mm-hmm. I don't DNF as hard as quickly. Mm-hmm. I'm still hesitant with specific book series sometimes due to just the sheer number of actual books, aka
commitment level. Yeah.
That's what it is, because I'm still a mood reader at heart. So I might just be in the mood to read a lot of romances or whatever, but then one day I'll be like, nah, can't switch.
Yeah.
So
I also think romance offers a lot more opportunity to read a series with other shit in between because of the beauty of the interconnected standalone.
And I'm finding I love character-driven versus plot a lot more right now.
Yeah.
So I love the human connection aspect that you can get from romances because you feel the feelings versus just going through the motions of following somebody along with a journey, which is always great and which is what fantasy is.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes with like Marked by Destiny by Maggie Lynn, like you feel what they're feeling in the adventure. So it's a little bit better than just getting their POV and being like, we're on our way.
I think that's why we both love cozy fantasy. Because it meets that middle ground of like, you feel their feels, but also this is still a fantasy with magic and dragons and whatever, all the fun things. But it's still a heartfelt story at the end of the day. I think that's probably why we both enjoy cozy fantasy so much.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's been a really great learning curve and a feeling of growth. So, because a year and a bit into reading heavily is just, there's so much room.
I want to remind everyone here that, like, you literally started your reading journey with Fourth Wing 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have not been a long-term reader, and the growth that you've had in both, like, your openness to what you read and what you enjoy has been, like, crazy to watch. Because when we met, you were in this, like, very pigeonholed, this is what I'm expected to read, so this is what I'm going to read kind of vibe. Yeah. And I feel like we love Roxy here. Roxy kind of broke that for you.
Yeah, I think, most. Because like, Romantic Suspense was, like, such a weird and new area.
Like a little gateway.
I was like, what is this? Like, I love it, but like, what? Because I remember I was having conversations like, what the fuck do we categorize this? Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh shit. It's the mystery of suspense, but with human connection. Why do I love it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
It's been really fun to watch. Like, obviously, we've gotten really close in the last year and a half as well. Like,
sure. Obviously. The trust of just Rex in general.
But watching, like, hey, I think you should really try this. And then you doing it and being like, motherfucker, this is great.
I remember we were so, like, on different ends and just contrast of reading at the beginning. And now we've kind of just, like, amalgamated into one just melting pot of emotions and trauma. And it's just like, oh, what do we feel like getting hurt today with?
Yeah.
It's like, it's been really fun. So.
Yeah, we've molded into having very similar taste almost entirely across the board outside of like a couple spots. Like, obviously I enjoy spice thoroughly more than you do. That's why I enjoy dark romance. That's one of the ones that you will not touch, and that is so fair.
Yeah.
But you dipped your toe in Butcher and Blackbird and Lights Out and loved it. So it's like there's this balance of understanding what you like and where your lines are that allows you to open your horizons to so many more books. And like, if I had told you to read, obviously it wasn't out yet, but Lights Out, when we first met, you would have been like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's psycho behavior. Go to church.
No, literally.
That's what I literally would have said that. But as we've grown as friends, you know the things that I would look for in it. So every time you bring up a dark romance, you go, but there's banter, or but there's funny. Yeah. And it needs to have that. And that's what Butcher and Blackbird or the Ruinous Love Trilogy and Lights Out provide. So anything else, and even the sense of like, oh, this got really spicy, you could get through it because it's like maybe like 5% of the book.
Yeah, so I think the beauty of Nevessa Allen in particular is that her spice is fucking spicy, but it doesn't drag on.
No, you're right.
So, like, okay, if you haven't read Lights Out, this is not going to be a spoiler to anything important, but the knife scene in Lights Out is a lot. It's a lot.
But it was funny.
But it's over like that. Like, it's not on for long. It's a very on-off, the spice is over, you move on with the story, you move on with the characters.
It's funny.
So that's why I was like, you gotta get through it. I know this scene is gonna be a lot for you, but you gotta get through it.
Yeah. I remember the other knife scene in the car.
Yes.
I remember it getting a little bit spicy and hot in there.
Yeah.
Tell me why this man, aka me, rewound, was like, wait a minute, what did I hear? It went like too fast.
I
it
love
was
that.
it was too fast. The cold hard steel went where? Okay, let's rewind.
Try again.
But again, loved the characters. Allie was so good. And again, with dark romance, now I'm starting to find, and you're starting to see the trend of, I don't like reading the dark romance, I'll listen to it. So narrators and audiobooks that are good are like, yes.
That I was gonna say, that's the other thing. Both Navessa Allen and Brynn Weaver know how to pick their narrators. They are such phenomenal audiobooks. Lights Out is probably my top audiobook recommendation of all time.
It is. It's top tier.
It's phenomenal.
Yes.
Okay, so on the topic of Rex and recommending
books, yeah.
Our bookish question of the day is to share a book that you recommend for beginners in a specific genre. So if you are listening to this and you have not tested out a genre, you don't know where to start, you don't know what you like, maybe we got some Rex for you.
Maybe.
So I broke mine down by like kind of the top genres that I read.
Okay.
So do we want to go back and forth? Because I think we'll both have some probably similar.
We can. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so my first one is romantasy / fantasy-ish. So I think Joaquin jumped off at a great point. I think Fourth Wing is a fantastic place to start. Because Rebecca Yarros is not a fantasy writer, she's a romance writer that took a jump into fantasy. I think Fourth Wing is written in a very approachable style.
Agreed.
So that's usually my go-to. If somebody's never read fantasy before, I'm like, Fourth Wing. Yep. Dragons, War College, a little bit of romance, a little bit of spice, easy to approach language. The world building is not crazy. I think it's a great jumping off place.
Right. Yeah. I guess to kind of feed off of that, my overall just great for beginners is urban fantasies. So
yes,
the fact that magic and all these other made up things can exist in a world that you already understand the way it functions. Mm-hmm. Urban fantasy as a whole is an incredible way to get into deeper fantasy. So I just have listed, even those technically YA, like really YA, Percy Jackson, again, super easy to follow along with, kind of go. Plus you also get a little bit of like the history of
mythology stuff,
So which is just sick.
I also think fantasy with mythology is also a great jumping off point, because a lot of people know the basis of like Greek mythology. So if you're going into a book understanding like sort of the high level, sometimes that makes it easier to read.
Yes. But yeah, so urban fantasy in general is a good place to kind of hop off.
Yeah. On the topic of YA, I also think Powerless is an incredibly easy starting place for romantasy. Yes, it is YA. It's spiceless. It's not anything crazy. But I think because Lauren Roberts was so young when she wrote it, it is so easy to get through because it feels kind of fanficky. Mm-hmm. It's, again, very approachable. There's no crazy world building. There's no crazy magic. Like, it's very understandable.
Yeah. For cozy.
Okay, my last one's cozy too.
Bookshops and Bone Dust and Legends and Lattes.
Absolutely.
Super easy.
Super easy, super approachable, super, honestly, simple. Like, the stories are very simple to understand.
No, it's just straight feel good with a splash of mythological creatures. It's just really nice.
Yeah, and I think maybe if you're not onto like the whole crazy world building and all that, and that seems like too much, but you want like the orc and the whatever, like I just love those books so much.
Yeah.
My last one is TJ Klune, House in the Cerulean Sea. We all know how much I love TJ Klune. I think House in the Cerulean Sea technically takes place in the human, real, normal world. So in the same breath as urban fantasy, like, it exists in a world you already understand, and all you're trying to conceptualize is this otherness of the group of kids with magic. So it's very approachable. It's so sweet. Such a nice story. Just so good. The inclusion vibes in it are incredible. And it's not too long. I just think TJ Klune House in the Cerulean Sea in particular is a fantastic jumping off point if you just want something sweet and easy with that touch of fantasy.
Right. So I have 3 more.
Ooh.
Yeah, I guess I just vibed off. For thrillers, psychological thrillers, any of that stuff, I have both Any Frida,
Okay,
but
that's what I have too.
yeah, Any Fridas, or They Never Learn.
Oh, yes, that's
They
actually a
Never
great
Learn
one.
was a great. It just threw me for a loop. It was very just
Fantastic.
whoa.
Yeah.
I can't even explain it. Not even the plot. I can't explain how I feel about it. Like, it was very. It threw me off enough to not be like, "Yep, that's what it is." But it
It's
was
not
like
an unbelievable
it kept you on
twist.
right. It kept you on a
Yeah.
thread of being like, "This could fucking happen."
Yeah.
Which is where the psychological aspect comes into it, and
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, okay. And then Frida,
I-
I jumped in to Housemaid and was like, again with the twist of being like, oh, that was really fun,
Yeah.
and it kind of made me go, I want more, I want more, I want more into like that specific Housemaid series. So
Yeah. So I also have Frida as an easy jumping off point. I disagree with Housemaid. You know, I didn't love it, but
yeah,
I also read it, I think, too many books into reading Frida. I think it's a great
yes,
jumping off point for Frida. I think you kind of have to start there because there are other books that are better and you will be disappointed if you read it later, like I did. Never Lie is probably my favorite Frida. Highly recommend as an easy
was that your
approachable
first?
thriller. Yes.
Okay, so your bar was super
Yeah.
fucking high already.
Yeah. So I kind of screwed myself over there.
Okay.
I will say I love They Never Learn, but could be potentially incredibly triggering, so please be careful if you are going to pick that one up to understand what that story is about before you go there. Joaquin's making a face.
I remember, but I don't understand what's triggering. We'll talk about it later. It's fine.
Yeah, hefty themes of essay. Let's just...
Yeah.
They could be very triggering. Anyways, just please, if you're going to pick up a rec, double check that it's something that you're comfortable reading. Most of these, like Butcher and Blackbird, Lights Out, anything that we mentioned like that has trigger warnings pages. Please just be mindful of them when you go to read them. Thriller, my other one is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose.
Right.
It is very low thrill, I would say, because the actual like twistiness of it is not crazy.
No, you just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. You have an unreliable narrator. It's very emotion heavy. It was a really easy book to read, in my opinion.
Yes. Okay. Is that all of yours?
No, I still have 3 more genres.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So, I went, like, spooky vibes, witchy vibes, wicked deep.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Also YA, so super approachable and easy.
Yeah. Just a vibey book. You just kind of go with the flow with it. It's not high stakes. It doesn't feel not scary, spooky, whatever. You're just vibey. That's literally just what it is. Yeah.
Yep. No, love that.
And then I'm just gonna throw my last one out there for any character driven spice. Go Viciously Yours.
Oh, you're such a psycho.
I can't say it with a straight face, but Go Viciously Yours because it was mine.
By what's her name? Jamie Applegate? Is that
Jamie something Applegate. Yes, you're right. I'm not really good. I never give the author's name with any of these books, but it's the one with the feather on the cover. You'll find it. It's green with a feather on the
Jamie
cover.
Applegate Hunter.
Applegate Hunter, yes. She has a second one coming out in the interconnected standalone, so you better bet your ass I'm reading that one too.
We're both gonna read it. Let's be real.
Because it's super short, fast paced, but it's spice. It's smut, essentially, wrapped up in.
It's probably the smuttiest book you've read.
Percentage-wise
of smut.
Oh,
like.
Okay, percentage-wise, yes, but I was gonna say, in terms of the level of spice, no, Lights Out is still queen.
Yes.
But you're right. It felt like every other chapter, the bathtub
was spice.
scene.
Yeah.
See, why do I remember the spice in this book? But yeah.
So I think what we're learning here is Joaquin doesn't actually dislike spice. It just has to be the right spice.
It does have to be the right spice, right time to spice. Yes. I guess the actual whatever that's going on in the spice doesn't really matter. I guess I don't really care, but it has to be time. and I went into this knowing that it was, well, actually not knowing it was spice heavy, but the I don't know if it was like the prologue or like the dedication. It was something like, if you're not ready to like have sex every other page, then don't read this book.
Oh, Lord. So on that note, dark romance. For me, I have 3 recs, 2 of which we've already mentioned in this podcast. Lights Out, incredible. The banter, the humor is just next level. Love it so much. Butcher and Blackbird / the whole Ruinous Love trilogy. Again, banter, humor, just, there's so much relief from the dark in these dark romances that they're honestly kind of hard to categorize that way, but I think they're a great jumping off point. If you realize that you like the dark stuff in those, you may actually enjoy dark romance. And my last one is also contested as whether or not it's dark romance, but Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I absolutely fucking adored that book. It's incredibly short. And it is a romance with dark themes, in my opinion. I don't think it's a traditional dark romance, but it's dark.
Is that the one with the chains on the cover? Like
yes.
The lockets? Yeah.
Yes. That's the new cover. I have the indie cover where it's like their hands chained together.
Okay.
Anyways, not that matters. But I think those 3 are all approachable. If you think you might like dark romance, these are still trigger hefty. There's still a lot going on. But if that's something you think you'd enjoy, those 3 are a great place to start. And last but not least, cowboy romance.
Yeah!
Everyone knows that I will recommend my queen, Lila Sage, as a first jumping off point into cowboy romance. A, because they're not super long. And B, because I find that Lila Sage writes cowboy romance in a way that doesn't feel like it only belongs in the cowboy romance genre. Her stuff is very... Yeah, it has great plot. Her characters are phenomenally formed. She has hefty mental health rep across all of her books. Like, there's just so much that's good about them that they belong, like... More people need to love them because they're not as niche as people think they are.
And the series is almost fully complete. So you could
literally next week.
It's coming out next week. So by the time you read the other ones, you can just, it'll be out and you can crush the whole thing.
And actually, I think by the time this episode is out, it comes out the next day.
18th, 19th?
Oh no, it'll be out already.
Yeah, it comes out already.
Comes out the 15th.
Yeah, the 15th. I know that.
If you're listening to this, it's a complete series.
Yeah. Fucking crush it. Yeah, do it. I second that.
And then I have one other cowboy romance rec, and this is not to discredit the other cowboy romance that I love. I just think these 2 are the most approachable jumping off points. And it is a recent read by an indie author. Between the Pines by Amber Palmer. I read it in one night. When I tell you that this book is the perfect cowboy romance, like there's no other way for me to describe it, because it has everything that I look for in a cowboy romance and more. It was so good, and there's an underlying plot line that is like, I had no words. I was so impressed by the whole story, and it's short. Like, it happened so quickly that I was like, what the fuck, how did I just finish this book? This was amazing.
Yeah. Well,
you still need to read that one.
I do have to add it to my TBR now that, like, it's a good reminder. But
yeah,
honestly, this is a really good base to start if you have no idea where you're going in specific genres. And this episode as a whole, you guys can tell kind of how we've been shaped and formed. And
we're both heavy mood readers. Like, big time. We are not people who will sit and devour a series back to back to back to back in one go. That's not us. So I feel like we have a little bit finickier taste than some people. So our recs are probably fairly safe. For the most part.
Quite. Because we didn't just like name something that was popular on Book Talk because it was popular on Book Talk. Like, we didn't just name it because it was out there. We named it because it was a 4.5 or higher out of 5 to us. And if you just vibe with the way we think about books and feel about books and have talked about them in the last 13 episodes, you
crazy
you will appreciate these recs for sure.
Yeah. I think one thing that we have mentioned but didn't explicitly mention in these recs is if you like romance and you like thriller and you're looking for something that has a little bit of both, please go read Roxy.
Yeah.
Literally, I've never read anything more devourable in my entire life. Roxy Cohen, literally anything by her. Specifically, I loved Kiss Me in the Dark, but they're all amazing.
I'm a Jude man.
Yeah. Jude was my first, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're all on KU. You'd also be supporting an indie author. Like, you gotta do it.
Well, okay. You guys know where to find us every week. Fridays, 12 p.m. EST on all of your streaming platforms, wherever you get your podcasts.
We would love to hear your favorite books to recommend for someone new starting in a genre, what your jumping off points were, what your favorite reads were as a kid. If you have thoughts or feelings on any of this stuff, we would love to hear it.
Yes. And on that note, bye!
Bye!